A very good evening to all our viewers today. This is Dr. Anjana, your host for this evening. Today we have with us Dr. Manikandan. He has graduated from Madurai Medical College and is currently working in the emergency medicine in London. He's completed both his levels of PLAB, that is PLAB 1 and 2. Apart from his academic excellence, he also loves to write blogs on exploring the deeper dimensions of existence, observing the causes behind thoughts and actions, asking the very important question, why? Let us welcome him for today's session on Can You Pass PLAB 1 while working full time? And yes, here is how. So, welcome, Dr. Manikandan. It's very gracious of you to accept our invitation and be here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Dr. Anjana. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to be here as well.
Yeah. So let us start off from your bachelor's. I want to know, how did you land up in medicine as such? Was it like your childhood dream, or was it? I just want to know, how did you land in medicine?
Oh, thanks for that question. That's a long time. When rewinding back, so I would not say that I was somebody who was always aspiring or dreaming of becoming a doctor right from school days. In fact, when in schools, usually teachers ask all of us, what do you want to become in the future? So when
Right.
it comes to the rows and columns, I don't remember any time saying that I want to become a doctor till my 12th standard, because I always wanted to do something different, not doing something which has been done routinely.
Hmm.
So in that case, so in 12th standard, things changed. So people, when you get good scores in 12th standard, either you become a doctor or you become an engineer. So that's the thing uh, which is the unwritten norm of most of the societies. And
Right.
so I wouldn't say again that I didn't want to become a doctor as well. So I wanted to be in a profession that has interaction with people. So
Hmm.
I grew in a background where I visited. My family runs a business, so I
Okay.
usually visit my parents' shops, dealing with customers and interactions, dealing with staff. So those
Okay.
things are interesting, and it's very rewarding as well when you have helped people in any kind, be it a doctor, be
Hmm.
it a salesman, or any profession that involves direct interaction with people. I think it's more rewarding and you get good at it. So
Yeah.
that kind of interactions, plus when you're
Hmm.
good at studies, so when you combine both, I think medicine was an ideal profession, so I went into
Right.
that.
Right. Was there any particular incident or personality who inspired you for this, for taking up medicine, if I may ask?
That's a good question again. Thanks for that. I would say that I didn't have any particular role model or something
Hmm.
when I entered medicine. In as such
Okay.
in medicine, I would. Yeah. So because I was the first one to go to university in my family, so I didn't have any
Okay.
role models to look up in the previous generations as well. So
Hmm.
that's completely fine. And so yeah, it was a blind and it was an open decision, and thankfully
Okay.
it went well and it's going still well. Thanks for the
Okay.
question again.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
So coming to your stint at Madurai Medical College, how was it, and what role did your professors and peers, for that matter, and your seniors as well, play during your bachelor's days?
Yeah, thanks for the question again. So Madurai Medical College is a beautiful place to learn medicine. It's a age-old institution, history dating back long ago. So when I joined, it was the 75th anniversary of that hospital, Government
Oh,
Research
wow.
Hospital, Madurai, in 20.
Okay.
So it's a long legacy, and
Hmm.
you see, the good thing about Madurai is that you have villages all around. So
Hmm.
Madurai is the hub of tertiary health care in South Tamil Nadu. So people from other districts are referred to Madurai. So you have a
Right.
good amount of clinical exposure there.
Hmm.
So very good clinical exposure, I would say. You would see all patients, all kinds of patients, all kind of clinical exposure will be happening there. That's one
Right.
thing. So having said that, it's also the teachers are also helpful. So because most of the teachers were who completed their MBBS and post graduation from Madurai itself, there were a lot of teachers like that. So they knew exactly what are the requirements of the students and what are the requirements which can be helpful for their development. So it was good in that way.
Hmm.
However, I would say that there's a lot we can improve, not only in Madurai but in all other institutions as well. So yeah, there are some gaps as well. Like when it comes to research, there is a lot more we can improve. That is still
Hmm.
happening. It's good, but still we can improve that field. And so, asking your question about professors in particular and things, I think all of them are equally helpful and guiding, and so we can learn from them, not
Right.
only through great teaching, but by simply observing them and simply seeing what they're doing during rounds or during classes. How are they managing their time? So they usually they treat everybody, so they have to deal with the most clerical worker to the dean at the uh, positions at higher levels. So how are they handling with people? So
Right.
so it's kind of a flattened hierarchy. It doesn't mean that since because you're a clerical worker you're low, and if you're
Hmm.
in a you're in that grade. It doesn't
Right.
mean like that.
Right.
So they're been treated equally, which is good, and so it's a lot to learn both in medicine and outside medicine as well.
Right, right. I mean, it should have been an amazing experience. I mean, coming from a government college myself, I can, vouch for the fact that when you mentioned that you have a lot of inflow of patients coming to you and you get to see a lot of clinical cases, I think that is one thing which is a plus point. And also
Yes.
that you mentioned regarding research, which is lacking in medical colleges. I think that is one thing which Indian medical education needs a revamp in, because I think it's not very much stressed upon, right? And I
Yeah.
think if students can start take research very much early into their career, I mean into their bachelor's, I think that will be very helpful. And this has been spoken by with from a lot of speakers whom we have had. I mean, I've spoken to of quite a few speakers on this podcast, and everybody has stressed upon this fact that research is something that is lagging in medical field, and it definitely should be encouraged early on in bachelor's.
Yeah, you're right. I think rather than, so on the flip side, so on the downside of it, so
Hmm.
these days now you have mentioned that research is we have to improve a lot. So now you see that whatever we do should come out of quality, not just quantity.
Hmm.
So
True.
now you take in many, so just for the sake of getting into research, just for
Hmm.
the sake of getting or published somewhere, just for the sake of developing a portfolio or something. So it should not be directed that way, because that's
Hmm.
not how research works. I think
Correct.
it is important to educate on what really research is, what really
Hmm.
research means.
Hmm.
Means generation of new knowledge. We transform. We are now very good consumers of knowledge. We consume it very well, more
Right.
than the anyone else. When it comes
Right.
to producing knowledge, it can't be just like that, writing something which you had in your dream. It doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
Science doesn't
Correct.
work. So it's about knowing really what research is and
Hmm.
why are we doing this research, and so what benefits can it bring to the community or to the field of science, and what new things we can learn from that. I think having that perspective is important in mind of what really research is and things, rather than just getting into a research group and getting our name published only for that. That's important, that's not unimportant, I would say, but that should not be the primary objective. The primary
Correct.
objective should be generating new knowledge, and which can be
Hmm.
helpful for the wider community.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely agree on that point. Now coming to your PLAB series, right? So I want to understand, like, were you keen on giving this PLAB exams right from your bachelor's, or when did you start thinking about PLAB exams?
Yeah, thanks for the question again. I didn't have much idea about it when I was in bachelor's.
Okay.
When I was in internship, I started seeing patients. I started interacting with people, postgraduates and friends. Your contacts gets wide. when you enter internship. So at that
Correct.
time, I thought, like I said before, I always wanted to do something different. Not, I would not say just, I would not say that PLAB is superior to anything. I would never say that. So I just wanted to do something different. So there's something different we can. So we have been staying here for the last 5.5 years. Okay, let's see what's going on outside as well. So I just started exploring what are the alternate pathways apart from this, and I thought a PLAB was the most
Right.
feasible at that time, because by the time I decided, this was on the beginning of my internship. So my internship was
Right.
in COVID. It began with COVID. My first day of duty was on COVID ward. So at that
Oh
time,
my
you
God.
get this. What was it? It's called. You get 1 week of duty and 3 days of off, because you have to
Right.
isolate yourself.
Hmm.
So during one of those 3 off days, I was thinking about what we can do, and I decided on this. And yeah,
Okay.
thankfully, everything is. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. So that's interesting to know. So did you think of giving NEET PG or any other exam like USMLE, or how was your thought process going on during that time? I mean, you said uh, you were thinking about those 3 days, you were thinking about PLAB. I mean, so did you think about NEET PG as well?
Yeah, obviously everybody thinks about NEET PG, because NEET is something which is ingrained in you right from medical school, and so
Mm.
actually, yeah, I was preparing for my NEET as well when I was in my final year, and so whenever I get time, I do MCQs and things like
Right.
that. During internship as well, I do give, because everything is knowledge ultimately. It doesn't mean
Correct.
that your
Mm.
preparation for NEET is not useful for lab or the vice versa. Everything is something which will be useful in some way, at least in some way, not if not everything. For
Right.
example, knowing the length of the eustachian tube in a male may not be useful in PLAB 1. So
Mm.
there will not be questions, but in NEET PG, there can be questions like that. So,
Mm.
however, when it comes to clinical side, all are equal, and you get clinical questions both in PLAB and NEET. So
Correct.
I was preparing for NEET as well. It was just not, I would not say that preparing for NEET, but I just did MCQs just to keep up to date on, and the habit of solving MCQs, and seeing the updates, because the platforms are quite good in giving you the updates, all the
Correct.
online platforms, what's happening
Mm.
recently, modern things.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I was, and
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
that's about it.
Yeah.
And about your question on US,
Yeah.
I USMLE. I at that time, the process was like step one, step two, and have to do some observerships, and then you get matched. That's about USMLE. So
Mm.
at that time, when I compared both PLAB and both USMLE, when it comes to my way of living and my priorities, so USMLE, it looked like it's a long journey at that time when I was in internship for me. Again,
Right.
it's purely subjective. So there are people after internship who start from step one, step two, go to their observership and get matched. So salute to them, hats off, and that's a very good thing to do. There is nothing
Right.
stopping from doing that. In
Mm.
my case, in my personal preference, I thought PLAB is a more feasible option, and
Right.
also I preferred that. Okay, so UK is some way it looked like more feasible than US.
Right.
So from some personal choices and things, I thought PLAB is something which we can do relatively less complicated than USMLE. So
Yeah.
I was onto this.
Right. So, if I have to ask you regarding the PLAB exam itself, do you think PLAB exam is easy or difficult? I mean, if you have to rate it, what would be your rating in? I just want to know on that.
Uh, That's actually a very subjective question, I would say.
Okay.
It's difficult to rate objective, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Like how you ask for pain to patients, if you can
Yes.
rate on a scale of 1 to 10. A lot of
Hmm.
patients don't know what to answer on the time. They'll write in agony. So it's the same way. Like when you take PLAB one,
Hmm.
um, again, so our brains work by comparison. So when you ask this question to an Indian, who was born and brought up in India, did their medical education in India. So obviously their subconscious mind will compare this to the NEET PG because that is de facto here. So we
Correct.
all have, so if you ask the same question to a Turkish doctor, or you ask to a Bulgarian doctor from a different country, or different country where NEET is not happening, so their answer will be quite different. So if you compare to NEET PG, PLAB 1 exam is not that difficult as NEET PG. Again, it can't be said that you can just go for it without any preparations.
Hmm.
It's a lot different. PLAB 1 is mostly, again, it's an MCQ exam. It's mostly a clinical based exam. So you will be given a clinical scenario and options, and more than one options may be right, but you have to choose only one. You have to choose the best one. So you have to read the question really clearly, that what is the
Right.
first thing you would, or what is the best thing you would do. And so
Right.
them is very important to read about, and you
Hmm.
answer them based on that. So I would say that for a person like me, in my view, PLAB 1 was less difficult than NEET PG for sure. Having
Okay.
said that, doesn't mean that you can take PLAB 1 without any preparation. It doesn't work like that. You have to prepare for
Yeah.
that as well.
Hmm. That baseline preparation is anyway needed. I mean, it's a competitive exam after all. So, uh,
Yeah. So how different it is that, so NEET is categorized according to rank.
hmm,
So
hmm.
that's no rank system in PLAB 1. Usually it's just a yes or no. It's a binary, 0 or 1. If you pass
Okay.
PLAB 1, you go to, if
Hmm.
you don't pass PLAB, you take PLAB 1 again. So that's simple as that. So
Right.
uh, NEET is not like that. You get good rank and you get into your
Hmm.
specialty of choice depending upon your rank, right? So PLAB
Right.
is
Right.
just an entry ticket for PLAB 2. That's all. There's
Hmm.
nothing with that.
Right. Okay. So you were a working professional when you took up your PLAB exam. So I want to ask you as to what was your biggest challenge that you faced while preparing for PLAB, and how do you think it differed from someone who was purely concentrating for a PLAB exam and studying?
Uh, yeah, so that's a sensible question actually. So again, so the question arises because it's common in India to take a break after your MBBS, after your
Correct.
internship for a year
Hmm.
almost to prepare for NEET PG exams.
Hmm.
Again, if this question will become irrelevant or invalid for somebody from, say, from a country which doesn't have a exam like NEET, because if you take UK or if you take any other country, in most of the countries in Europe, so after MBBS you start working, and exams are
Hmm.
just a part of the process.
Okay.
So it should comes in the side actually. So nobody actually takes a gap for per se for preparing the exams. They might
Right.
take some annual leaves or study leave for the exam for 2 or 4 weeks, up to 4 weeks. They might take some annual leave or so for preparing or for revising for their exams. But nobody, it's not a common practice to take a gap just for the sake of preparing for an exam,
Right.
right? So in most of the countries here, so again, it's not absolute, so there may be exceptions in this case. So when you come to the Indian context, I understand you're asking for audience who are viewing from India. So if you take in the Indian context, how it works is like, so the GMC, if somebody is preparing for PLAB or PLAB 1, PLAB 2, if somebody wants to pursue some career in the UK, one important thing they have to notice is that there should be no unexplained clinical gaps.
Right. That's an
Unexplained clinical
important
gaps. It
point.
doesn't mean
Huh.
that the clinical gaps should be non-existent. It can exist, but it. So again, so while explaining clinical gaps, it would not look so good when you say that I was preparing for my PLAB 1 exam, so I took a gap of 1 year. Nobody is going
Right.
to
Right.
accept that, because that's something which is not very common practice. Again, one
Hmm.
month or 2 months, that's a different story altogether. When
Hmm.
you take a long gap just for the sake of preparing for PLAB 1, it doesn't look good on your applications in the future when you apply for jobs. So that's one thing. And
mm,
second thing, I have not come across anybody who took a whole year of gap for PLAB one as of now, but I heard people do that.
mm,
I would say that it makes no difference because it doesn't need, if you have good medical knowledge from your medical
mm,
school and from
mm,
your internship, if you have good clinical knowledge, I
mm.
don't think you will need a year of gap for PLAB one.
Right,
It's just when you can, somebody can work and they can do some 30 to 40 questions in a day after work, and you can take from there. I think that's more
right,
easier and more practical approach, and they would be in no lesser side than somebody who takes a gap year or a gap few months and prepare per se for the exam.
right, right. Well, my next question would be, like, being a working professional, how did you stay motivated and focused? Because I'm sure you would be doing it after your working hours, and I'm sure you would have had days where you were super exhausted from your working schedule and all that. So how did you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, thanks for the question again. So I was working in anesthetics at the time. So I worked
Okay,
for almost a year at the time, when I was preparing for my PLAB one exam and both PLAB one and PLAB two. So how it worked for me was like, so my shift started at usually we go at 7 in the morning. So the list
right.
starts 7:30, so you have to go half an hour before the list starts. And so obviously you do everything, and it will be around 5 when you finish, if it's a day case procedure. Mostly I was posted mostly in the day case procedures and things. So in the pre-anesthetic clinics, that's how my schedule was, thankfully, because I had told my supervisor that I have to prepare for my exams as well, so they um, given me accordingly the schedules.
Right.
So how it worked for me was, after work, to actually spend 2 or 3 hours in the library to
Hmm.
do questions 20, 30, 40
Hmm.
minutes a day. That's something you can do. And answering your second part of the question about what motivated or to stay on track after exhaustion, I would say that motivation and exhaustion, again, those are subjective things. So what is
Mhm.
motivating for one person may not be for the different person. I think
Right.
that's something which everybody has to decide on their own, about what gives the drive to them.
Hmm.
Again, if the drive is strong enough, and if somebody is really committed to the process,
Hmm.
if the drive is strong enough, I don't think they will need an external motivation to prepare for this exam, or to just for the sake of doing questions.
Right.
So I would say that after work, if you're working and preparing for PLAB one, after work, just take a short break. You can take a walk or something for a few minutes, and
Hmm.
then reflect on what happened on that. And every day we see patients, we see new things, and those things are hugely helpful, both in the exam and in the real life as well. So
Correct.
reflecting on those experiences and applying them while preparing for the exam, those will be quite useful, and it will make the preparations more interesting as well.
Right. Right. Very true. Uh, I would also like to ask if you had a study schedule for yourself during the preparation, and if you followed any study techniques for the preparation.
Mm, okay. So schedule, and the say in the sense that so I divided the available time for me in front of me into a few blocks or components. So for example, if you take cardiology, you finish cardiology in this number of days, and
Right.
you take respiratory medicine, you finish that in this number of days. Again, it is subjective. For somebody who is very strong in cardiology may not need the time I needed for cardiology, and it's the
Correct.
vice versa. So whichever you're comfortable with, you take less time for that. Whichever
Hmm.
subject you're less comfortable, take more time for that.
Hmm.
And so again, my basic thing was not going to sleep before doing at least 30 questions a day. That was
Hmm.
the thing. So when you do 30 questions a day consistently for a period of 30 to 50, I would say minimum 30 and maximum will be 50 or even more than that when you're off on that times. So when committing to a consistent number of questions per day, I think, and maintaining that consistency every day, that
Mm.
you do that every day, then it becomes a habit. And
Mm.
once that habit is established, then it's very easy on the exam. So I would say that preparing a schedule to your own needs on what subjects you are strong at and what subject you are weak at, and committing to a schedule of number of questions a day. Again, 30 was for me, and for a person for working for less hours, it may be different, and for a person who's working for more hours, it may be different. So commit to a number of questions per day, and see how long the exam is, and commit to finish the number of questions which you had committed to every day. That's all.
Right.
I think that's the simple thing which one person can do to easily do this exam, because this exam is very doable. I would say that lab one is the most easiest
Huh.
part of the entire UK journey. That's the
Right.
most easiest part, and because after that things get more different and more challenging. PLAB
Mm.
one is the most simplest part in the journey of a person who wants to start there or pursue their career in the United Kingdom. I think
Right.
I think they can do well. Yeah.
Right. I think I would like to stress upon the fact that you said consistency. That is something which is very important, and I'm sure. I mean, being in medical field, all medical graduates do develop that habit of consistency because they will have to, study from throughout. I mean, that is what is needed, and definitely. I mean, you mentioned that 30 was your bracket, 30 to 50. But I have had friends who used to solve 300, 400, 500 MCQs who are preparing for NEET PG. So definitely it is subjective, as you said, and it is according to their convenience and what they are doing. So definitely, I mean, that is a good strategy to follow, and definitely being consistent helps you along, right? uh, so what I would be like Melo, I would ask you next is,
I'm sorry. I think voice is.
uh, am I audible now? Is it clear? Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I was mentioning that, consistency is the key, as you mentioned. So that is definitely something that we all need to imbibe in ourselves. Moving on to the next question. What resources would you recommend to someone who is studying for PLAB? If you have any specific resources in mind that you would like to share with us.
Oh, again, I'm sorry. The question was not clear. So, as far I understand, you asked about the resources which I used
Correct.
for PLAB one. Is that
Yes, yes, correct.
all right? So, I used two resources. One was Plabable, and the other one
Okay.
was Plabkeys. I subscribed to both of them, and yeah, I did from my things from that. So, Plabable is MCQ bank, which is very well known for PLAB. So that gives a very good division of questions according to
Right,
subjects. And
right,
I used Plabable, it worked for me. And again, there are a lot of platforms. People can do their own research and find which is suitable for them. But this
right.
worked for me. And lab keys give you notes of different subjects and different it's a notes form basically. Plabable is a MCQ bank, and
Hmm.
Plab keys is it's like a notes. So you just go through the notes and you solve questions from Plabable, and that makes, and all, if you are strong in a subject, you finish the questions first in Plabable, and then you come to notes to see what are the gaps which you have to fill, and you can build your gaps on that. So I think identifying the gaps in your knowledge is more important in PLAB exams,
Right.
because we all have some gaps everywhere, right? So we may think that we are proficient in a particular subject, but we might have some gaps. I think doing MCQs from Plabable first can help you identify those gaps
Hmm.
which are existing in your knowledge, and the gaps in those areas can be built by the notes from PLAB keys, or you can search in the internet. It's everywhere. So that's how it works for me. It worked for me.
Right, right. That's
Thanks.
interesting. That's a good strategy to follow. Also, I would like to ask you, what are the common mistakes that you think one will be doing while giving or preparing for their PLAB exam?
Um, Common mistakes. I would say that one thing is that this is not a very complicated exam.
Hmm.
So I think we have to make things very simple and very clear. So just reading the on the day of exam, I would say that it's common to get anxious on the day of exam. Again, have to read the question very clearly. Most of the times the questions will be simple, and it can become complicated if we think complicated.
Hmm.
So that's one thing. So to keep questions in a straightforward way and understand what's being asked in a very plain, straightforward way, and
Right.
doing going in that direction. That's one thing. And second thing, one difficult, one I would not say difficult, but one challenging thing, which is unique for this PLAB 1 exam, is that I'm not sure how it is now, but when I gave on February 2023, it was still a pen and paper based exam. You have to circle the
Hmm.
OMR sheets with the pencil. So that's
Correct.
something which we are not used to these days. I think it's important to prepare for that strategy as well. I'm not sure if it's still pen and paper based now, but if it is so, I would highly recommend to take mocks in pen and paper rather than giving it in computers, because the shading will take time more than we
Hmm.
expect.
Hmm.
Have to shade it very dark, and have to do 180 questions in that sense. And when
Yeah.
we do something wrong, when you have to change, you have to take the eraser, have to rub, and you have to change again. So that will consume significant amount of time when you do that for a lot of questions.
Correct.
Unlike in computer, you can click and change the answers.
Yes.
It's very
Yes.
easy in computer, but when it's pencil and paper, it's a bit challenging. I think time management is something which one should give more attention in PLAB 1. That will be
Right.
the main challenge in the exam.
Right.
Apart from, I don't think clinical things on other things will be more challenging for a person who had prepared well.
Right. Here, I would also like to mention to our viewers that there is a proposed change in the pattern of PLAB exam, and that may happen for this academic year as well. So kindly stay updated on that as well, and understand what are the changes that are happening. And I think that will definitely be notified on their official websites, and you can go through that and you can prepare accordingly. So now coming to the next question, as you mentioned before as well that you were working, and I want to ask you, working full time, did it help you in any way in clearing the PLAB exam because you were seeing cases and all that? So I want to ask you, did that help in any way? Is my voice
I'm
clear?
sorry, the question was not clear. The voice was not clear.
Am I audible now? Uh, Viewers, I think we are having a slight technical glitch. I would request your patience. Uh, Dr.
Hello, can you hear me?
Manikandana, yes. Am I audible to you? Am I audible?
I think there is some lag between the voice and the video,
Okay, can you hear me
but
now? Is
I'm
it
not
better?
able. The question was not clear. Yeah, now it's better, I think. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So my question to you was that you have worked full time in during your preparation. So did that help you in any way in giving your PLAB exam? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was hearing in bits and pieces. Was your question like, uh, while working full time for PLAB 1, is that helpful? Was that your question?
Yes, correct. You're right.
It, yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, I think it will be helpful to work full time while preparing for PLAB one, because when you work, you see a lot of patients, you meet a lot of
Correct.
people, and so you basically you increase your experience and you increase your exposure to a lot of things, and not just stuck inside a room in front of books and computer and
Correct.
focused on everything on that way, because we learn a lot when we see patients than just reading books. Both are equally important, I would say. So seeing patients and reading for the exam, I think both go hand in
Right.
hand rather than going the other way around. So I think it is important to change your mindset. If the mindset is like, if I work if I work in full time, or if I work, I will not be having the time to prepare for my PLAB exam. It is not the way for PLAB one. I can say for sure, because it's a lot of people have cleared their PLAB one while they were working full time. It may
Correct.
not be the same for other exams. I can't comment on that, but for PLAB
Hmm.
one, I would say that it doesn't work actually help building your clinical exposure, and when you apply for jobs after your PLAB 2, the work experience will be very useful at that time as well. So I would highly recommend to work actually while preparing for PLAB 1. I think people are aware of that already, and most of them who apply for PLAB 1s are usually at work.
Right. Okay, so I want to ask you on the your experience during the exam day itself. I mean, you already mentioned that yes, it is quite normal for everyone, to feel anxious on the day of exam. I mean, that's quite natural. So, how did you manage to staying calm, and how did you manage that anxiety? How was your experience of giving the PLAB exam?
All
Am I
right.
audible?
So yeah, that's a sensible question again. So I would say that yeah, you're audible. Thanks. So I would say that I would I would not use the word anxiety in this case, because that's being used in a different context these days. So um, I think just going with the flow, which can really help. There is no need of making a deliberate effort or deliberate spending of energy to make oneself calm, and because there is this thing about called uh, some people get really stressed about not being stressed. So it works the other way around. So it's like stressing yourself to be cool. It doesn't work that way again. It goes against the flow. So I think it's important to just observe what's happening and go along the flow. That's all. So whatever comes, just let it come, and giving your fullest effort possible at the given time, at the given conditions. Because I think fear is one component, so which lies behind everything. So when we are afraid of the results, or when we are afraid that we might not perform well, that is perceived as stress or anxiety. So if we can try to observe that fear, there is no need to eliminate, consciously try to remove that fear. But if we are aware of that fear which is present, the fear of not
Right.
giving our fullest, or the fear of not getting the adequate results. So I think that's the one which causes the stress and anxiety that you mentioned. And if one is aware of that component, automatically it will subside on its own, and then you get cool and you go on. So just focus on one question at a time and one thing at a time, just giving that. So having mindset that this is not the entire life. So PLAB one, or be it any exam, it's there for making our lives better, or our career in a better way. It doesn't mean that our life is for PLAB. PLAB is for us. It's not we for PLAB, or be it anything else. So I think when you see your thing as a bigger picture, and this exam is just a part of life, a significant part, but still it's just a part of life. You see that from outside, and you give your fullest thing and move on. That's all. That would be my suggestion, and it worked for me as well. So I think it will work for a lot of people. And so this applies not only for PLAB 1 but for many other conditions which requires similar kind of presence. So that's something which can help in that case.
Right. I think that's an excellent piece of advice to all the youngsters who will be listening to this podcast. Keep yourself calm, and definitely that is going to help you out. So now we also know that you're someone who is into writing blogs, and you're quite a philosophical person as well. So tell us about your other interests, such as blog writing and others.
Yeah, thanks for the question again. Again, that's something which I started about. I think it's a couple of years ago after my graduation. Yeah, I usually like to read books and write something from childhood. So I don't know how, but I got into this habit of reading things, reading books outside the profession and outside the school. So I started reading
Dr. Manikandan, can you hear me? Yeah,
hello.
you're audible. Can
Sorry, there
you?
is some issues in the network. I think I'm not sure because usually it works.
Yeah, maybe it is also from my side because it's raining quite heavily here. I don't know. I mean, it could be a reason because,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. That's completely fine. We can't help about that. Rain
yeah.
is good for us. It's fine. All right. Unless it blocks roads and unless it causes some chaos, that's
Very
fine.
true. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So
That's
your
fine. All
question
right.
regarding
So,
your other
sorry.
interests.
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about that. So the blog I started on 2 years back. So I have this habit of reading books and writing stuff, random stuff from school days and things. Uh, so yeah, so after that, so after graduation, I was working. So I had so okay, what if we just share what we write? What if we share what we read, because that will be useful for a wider community. So a
Right,
lot of us, we think about we are all brought up in a system, most of us, where we are hesitant to share what we know already because we might be seen as perceived as a different note than what we want to be seen. So again that's component of there is a component of fear in that. So I tried to figure that out, and
right,
a few of my friends also told that so you're because I usually show my writings to them. They really provided good feedback. So why are you why don't you why don't you write it online and publish it so that a lot of people can read? So that's
correct,
something I started after that. And yeah, so I just do it when I'm free, not a full-time blogger or vlogger or some. I'm not a full-time writer. I just write, sometimes whenever I get time, whenever I get off, I try to write and publish them whenever I'm free. So that's something which goes on the side, not on the
right.
mainstream. Yeah.
Right. So even during our initial conversation, and I even read through a few of your blogs, and you insist upon knowing the why. So I want to ask you if you can speak briefly about that how did you stumble upon this or this realization, whatever it is. So why the stress on why?
Oh, okay. Again, sorry, the question was not clear, but I assume that you asked about one of my articles about the importance of questioning. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Right. Okay, thanks for that. So thanks for the question again. So so I think, see, usually when we are bound to something, when we are committed when we are in the circle, like when you're full time preparing for an exam, or when you're full time working on something, when you have a family, and when you have a lot of responsibilities, those times we try to fill all those responsibilities, like preparing for an exam, get good scores, and get um, good things for the family and things like that. So when you take a break, and when there is no such demands from you, when there are no such demands, when we get detached from those demands, when we see things from outside, we see that a lot of we see a lot of different things from a different angle. For example,
Correct.
now one advantage of for me in this.
Dr. Manikandan, can you hear me? Okay, today I think viewers, we are having, unfortunately, we are having a heavy rain here, and I think that is why we are having this network issue. Can you hear me now, Dr. Manikandan?
Hello, sorry, that's fine, that's all right. Yeah, I can hear you, that's all right. Thank you. Yeah, don't be sorry, it's not your fault. Thank you. All right. So yeah, so so continuing our conversation, I think it is important to see things from a different perspective, from a wider perspective of why things, or why do we do the things what we do. And yes, so when you see that we are all doing things, we all very well how to enter a career in medicine, or be it any field, engineering or anything like that. So we know very well how to get good scores. We know very well how to get into a good job. We know very well how to uh, make a lot of money, and how to make comforts for us. And we know very well how to make a family, and how to lead a society. And so uh, when I think when when you ask the question about why why one has to do all these things, and I think that's a very abstract, and it's a very difficult question to answer.
Hmm.
There is no answer to that, but I think it's important to just seek an answer. It's a never-ending process, basically. So even this video which we are doing, this conversation we are doing, so we are doing on how to time and prepare for PLAB. So
Correct.
again, so this is a how question. We are very good at. There are a lot of videos, lot of online materials already on how to do PLABs and things like that. It's becoming very common these days. So, but when you ask somebody of why do you want to do PLAB one, or why do you want to do this, or why do you want to become a doctor, uh, or why do you do want to what you're doing? So an average person, including myself, can answer up to one or two layers of whys. So you or somebody wants to do PLAB because they want to come work in the UK. All right. So why do you want to work in the UK? Answering that question. So that a lot of people will have
Dr. Manikandan, can you hear me? The weather has been playing a spoil sport today.
hello.
Yes, we are back again.
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you're audible. Please continue.
All right. Yeah. So that's how I think it's important to try to find the answer, or there is no obligation to find an answer. I think seeking
Hmm.
the process of seeking itself will make a lot of difference to a lot of things, and it can give a different experience altogether. I
Right.
think it's
Right.
important to seek for why we are doing what we do. Really,
Right.
again, that has to come from within. So just because somebody is saying, or just because watching some videos, and just because you read a book, or just because somebody is saying to do, I think that's not something uh, we should be pursuing. We are very convenient at that, so we are very convenient. We find it very convenient to follow somebody, or follow someone, or follow some books or things. That's very convenient. But I think the ideal way a human should exist is like, it's like, the thing is that we have to be free. We have to be free from everything. So just because abiding something without seeking, and just by following something what somebody told, I think that doesn't offer much freedom when in the first place. So
Right.
just because you read something, or just because you listen to a podcast, or just because you watch a video, I think simply following that, it's not, it's okay, but it's not the ultimate thing which a human being is capable of. So a human being, how human being is different from animals is the ability to seek and think behind what's going on. So I think that's important, to actually think what we are doing, and see what we are really doing, and before following anything.
Right. I think that's really deep, and it's something that we all need to question ourselves as to why and what we are doing. Right. I mean, this session has been quite amazing, and I'm really thankful to you for taking out your time from your busy schedule and being with us here today to speak to our viewers regarding how to clear the PLAB exams, and giving your tips on how they can do it while working. And definitely the point that you mentioned, that taking a gap year will not I mean if it is a gap, then it has to be explainable, right? uh, can you hear me? Yeah. Is it audible now?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So thank you for being here today. And I'm really sorry that, we had to, pause many times in the last few minutes. Thank you for being here with us today. And I really appreciate you taking out your time. So any final thoughts for all our viewers today?
Thank you for having me. Thanks for your time as well. Thank you. It was really nice talking to you, and it was really nice that this might help somebody who is watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can leave the links of my blog in the description, so that if somebody wants to have a look on that,
Yeah,
if they are
sure.
interested, obviously.
Yes, that can be done. Thank you for being here with us today,
Great.
Dr. Manikandan. The pleasure is ours. Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right.